Hi guys, so this is my review on Burn Bright by Marianne de Pierrs, and as you know this was the first book that I got sent for free from the publisher, so it was very exciting. I had no idea about the existence of this book before it arrived in my mailbox, so that was very cool. And it is a dystopian fantasy, as it seems to be the case with many Australian fantasy novels. We're very good at mixing fantasy and dystopian. And the cover, of course, is gorgeous, and it has Isabel Carmody's seal of approval. And I very, very, very much enjoyed this novel. And I've been tossing between whether or not I want to give it a 4.5 star rating or a 5 star rating, which, as you know, is like, whoa, shocking, I'm being so generous. But I think in the end I'm going to land on middle ground and give it a 4.7 rating, because I can. So yes, it was a very good book and I enjoyed it very much. I flew through it pretty quickly. It was a very easy, fluid read, and the descriptions were really lush and very evocative, but they were never bogged down in too much detail and stuff, even though one thing I will say, I did wish there was more of it, which I always seem to complain about. I did want more in this universe, but it is the first in a trilogy, so we'll be spending more time in this universe and with these characters. So that's good, because it certainly ends on quite a cliffhanger. And okay, it follows this girl here, Retra. She travels to the island of Ixion to try and get her brother back. He's escaped there 2 years prior, I think it was 2 years prior, because they grew up in a very totalitarian, a very conservative, very controlled community on another island. And yeah, their entire childhood was very limited. They didn't have any freedom whatsoever, and they were very confined and brought up in ignorance as to what was going on in the wider world. They didn't even know there was anything outside of their own home. And so her brother eventually has enough, and he goes off to Ixion. And Ixion is this place of, like, it's like the Pleasure Island in Pinocchio. Everyone wants to go there. It's the supposed utopia where all the young people travel to, because it's perpetual nighttime and you can party all you want. That's the entire point of the island, really. It's for pleasure. So you can party and have sex and do drugs. It's actually kind of compulsory to do drugs. That's what their confession is. It's all very skewed. Their religion is partying, and in order to take your confession, you go into a little confession box and you select a pill, and you take one every day before going off to party. I say day. There is no night. There is no daylight at all. It's just continual nighttime, and you don't sleep. It's all very it's all very weird. But it's something that all these kids seem to crave. And so Retra goes there, very determined to find her brother and bring him not back home, that she wants to take her brother and they can go someplace else and live, because she has no interest in being in Ixion. And I don't blame her, because it sounds really horrifying. And yeah, she's not into partying. She's been so I guess mind warped in a way by her own upbringing, and there's so much guilt associated with the idea of pleasure for her. She's had a really tough time, especially since her brother's left. Things have really gone to shit, and so yeah, she's trying to grapple with a lot of dark areas in her past that come to light more when she goes to Ixion. So she views it as a place that's really tainted, and she sort of sees it for what it is, as opposed to a lot of the other young people she comes into contact with and she befriends. So she kind of goes on this journey, not just to get her brother back, but to also discover the truth behind this place and what's really going on, the people that seemingly control it. And yeah, she's discovering the negative aspects of it very quickly. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now. But I kept drawing comparisons while reading this to Melissa Marr's Wicked Lovely series, in particular the second novel, Ink Exchange, and for me that's quite a good thing. Ink Exchange is certainly a love-hate book for a lot of readers, and yeah, it's quite an acquired taste, because the tone of it and the themes are very, very dark and morally questionable, I'll say that. And that's certainly the case in this book as well. There's some pretty somewhat graphic stuff in here. And in particular, just the atmosphere that was created, not only in Ixion, but emotionally, how Retro was feeling, how other people seemed to be reacting to the environment and things, really, really reminded me of Ink Exchange. And there's one character in particular, and his relationship with Retro really reminds me of Iriel, the Dark Fairy King of Ink Exchange. So I'll say that. Yeah, but it was an easy read. The writing style was very fluid. The descriptions were really lush and very evocative, so a lot was left to suggestion, which made all the horrific goings-on that much more terrifying, because you were kind of filling in a lot of the blanks, and it was really shudder-inducing. I really liked all the friendships that Retro made, and some of them were quite unexpected and tentative, so it wasn't just, oh, hello, we have things in common, now we're besties. It was, yeah, it was kind of a learning curve for all of them, because she is not good at social interaction. She doesn't know how to be around other people. One thing I actually did like, which a lot of people won't appreciate about this book, I need to warn you, is that there isn't a love story. There is a crush. Retro has a crush on somebody, but nothing has happened with that at all. And she hardly has any page time with this particular person. But there's reasons behind that, and you suspect that things will progress in later books anyway. But for now, at least, I was very glad of that, because she had other things to focus on. She was working things out about herself, and that felt much more important than going off and forming this little romance with somebody, especially someone who as yet doesn't seem worthy at all, but that's because we haven't had much time with him, I guess, and he had his own shit to deal with. So I was personally very happy that there was no romance in this book, but don't fear, it's part one of a trilogy, and I'm sure there's more to come. So yes, I very much enjoyed this book, and I'm really glad I got it sent to me, and it was a very pleasant surprise, and I do recommend you out and read it. And then if you haven't, read Melissa Marr's Wicked Lovely series, because I think this is a lovely companion book, even though there are no fairies in this, but there's freaky goings on, and it really reminded me of it, and that's a very high compliment from me. So yeah, 4.7 stars out of 5 for Marianne de Pierrs' Burn Bright. Oh, I should say that Retro is a good heroine as well. You really feel a lot of empathy for her, and even though seemingly she doesn't actively do that much, and it feels, I think a lot of people might criticize her as being a Mary Sue, but any lack of personality or specific interest in things is very much explained by her backstory, and she still has a really strong narrative voice, and you certainly really feel for her. So I liked her as a heroine, and I look forward to following her journey. So yeah, 4.7 stars for Burn Bright.